The rain tapped softly against the office windows, a steady rhythm that seemed to echo the heaviness in Daniel's chest. It had been 3 years since his divorce, but some days it still felt fresh, like a wound that refused to close. Every morning, he woke up not to silence, but to responsibility. His 6-year-old daughter, Lily, was the only thing that kept him grounded. The only reason he pushed forward through long days and even longer nights. Daniel wasn't the kind of man people noticed. He wasn't loud or flashy. He was steady, reliable, the kind of employee who showed up early, stayed late, and never complained. At the firm, people respected him, but few really knew him, and that was just the way he preferred it. Until her, Victoria Howe, the CEO of the company, was everything Daniel was not. Confident, sharp, and impossibly composed. She commanded every room she entered without even trying. Rumors swirled around her constantly about her wealth, her cold demeanor, her refusal to let anyone get close. To most people, she was untouchable. To Daniel, she was simply his boss. They barely spoke beyond work matters. Occasionally, she would nod at him in meetings or ask for updates on a project. But there was something in her gaze, something observant, almost curious that Daniel couldn't quite understand. It made him uneasy in a way he couldn't explain. One evening, long after most employees had gone home, Daniel was still at his desk, finishing a report. His phone buzzed. A message from Lily's babysitter. She's asleep. All good tonight. He smiled faintly, relief washing over him. Still working. The voice startled him. He turned to see Victoria standing behind him, her presence as quiet as it was powerful. She wasn't dressed in her usual sharp business attire. Instead, she wore a simple coat, her hair slightly undone. It was the most human he had ever seen her. Yes, ma'am, Daniel replied quickly, standing up, just finishing the quarterly report. She stepped closer, glancing at the screen. You always stay this late. Most days, he said. It's easier, after my daughter's asleep. Victoria's expression shifted just for a second. Something softer flickered in her eyes. You're a single father, she said, more as a statement than a question. Yes. There was a pause. The rain outside grew louder. Walk with me, she said suddenly. Daniel hesitated, confused, but nodded. He grabbed his jacket and followed her out of the office. They walked down the quiet hallway, their footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Instead of heading toward the exit, she led him to a private conference room. The lights were dim, the city skyline glowing faintly through the glass walls. Sit, she said. Daniel sat, his heart beginning to pound. This wasn't normal. CEOs didn't call employees into empty conference rooms late at night. Victoria remained standing for a moment, as if gathering her thoughts. Then she turned to him. I need your help, she said. Daniel blinked. Of course, ma'am. With what? She stepped closer. Too close. Be my husband. The words hung in the air, unreal and heavy. Daniel froze. I'm sorry. He stammered. You heard me, she said calmly. I need you to marry me. He stared at her, certain he had misunderstood. This had to be a joke. Or a test. Or something he couldn't yet grasp. Why? He asked, his voice barely steady. Victoria didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the window, looking out at the rain-soaked city. My family, she began, controls a significant portion of this company, but there's a condition tied to my position. A traditional expectation. Daniel frowned. You mean, they want me married, she said bluntly. Stability, image, legacy. I've avoided it for years, but now they're forcing the issue. And you chose me, Daniel asked, disbelief creeping into his voice. She turned back to him. You're responsible, discreet, and most importantly, you have nothing to gain from exploiting me. Daniel almost laughed, but stopped himself. This is insane, he said. You don't even know me. I know enough, she replied. I know you've raised your daughter alone for 3 years. I know you've never missed a deadline. I know you refused a promotion, because it would have taken time away from her. Daniel's breath caught. How do you know that? I pay attention, she said simply. Silence filled the room again. I'm not asking for a real marriage, she continued. It would be a contract, public appearances, a shared address if necessary. In return, I'll ensure your daughter's future is secure. Education, health, care, everything. Daniel's mind raced. It was too much. Too sudden. This isn't right, he said finally. You can't just ask someone this. Asterisk, I can, she said quietly. And I am. Asterisk, he stood up, running a hand through his hair. What about love? Doesn't that matter to you at all? For the first time, Victoria hesitated. Love, she repeated softly, is a luxury I can't afford. Asterisk, Daniel shook his head. Then you're asking the wrong person. He turned to leave. Daniel, she said, he stopped on, not as cold as you think. Asterisk, he glanced back at her. Asterisk, there are things you don't see, she continued. Things I've had to sacrifice to get where I am. Asterisk, Daniel studied her face. For the first time, he saw it not the CEO, not the powerful woman everyone feared, but someone tired, someone carrying a weight she couldn't share. Still, he couldn't do it. I'm sorry, he said. I can't. And with that, he walked out. The next few days were strange. Asterisk, Victoria didn't mention the conversation again. At work, everything returned to normal on the surface. But Daniel could feel the tension, subtle but undeniable. Asterisk, then, one evening, everything changed. Lily got sick. It started with a fever, then worsened overnight. By morning, Daniel was rushing her to the hospital, panic gripping his chest. Hours passed. Tests. Waiting. Fear. He sat beside her hospital bed, holding her small hand, wishing he could take her pain away. Daddy, she whispered weakly. I'm here, he said, forcing a smile. Then the door opened. Daniel looked up and froze. Asterisk. Victoria stood there. Asterisk. What are you doing here? He asked. Asterisk, I heard, she said. One of the managers mentioned you left suddenly. She stepped inside, her gaze immediately softening as she saw Lily. She's beautiful, Victoria said quietly. Asterisk. Daniel nodded. She's everything. Asterisk. Victoria moved closer, then did something Daniel never expected. Asterisk. She reached out and gently adjusted Lily's blanket. Asterisk. It was such a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. Asterisk. Is she going to be okay? Victoria asked. Asterisk. The doctors think so, Daniel said. They just want to keep her for observation. Victoria nodded. Then she turned to him. Asterisk. You don't have to do this alone, she said. Asterisk. Daniel let out a tired laugh. I've been doing it alone for years. Asterisk. You shouldn't have to. Her voice was different now. Softer, real. Daniel looked at her, really looked this time. The walls she kept so carefully built, they weren't gone. But they weren't as solid as before. Asterisk. Why do you care? He asked. Victoria hesitated. Then, quietly, she said, because I know what it feels like to have no one. The honesty in her voice caught him off guard. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound, the steady beep of the monitor. Asterisk. Finally, Daniel spoke. Asterisk. If I did this, he said slowly, it wouldn't just be a contract. Victoria looked at him. My daughter comes first, he continued. Always, and I won't let her grow up in something fake. Not again. Victoria nodded. I understand. Asterisk. And I won't pretend, he added. If we do this, it has to be real, at least in the ways that matter. Victoria's breath hitched slightly. Real, she repeated. Daniel nodded. She looked at Lily, then back at him. Asterisk. Then maybe, she said softly. That's exactly what I need. Asterisk. And in that quiet hospital room, with rain still falling outside and uncertainty hanging in the air, something shifted. It wasn't a contract anymore. It wasn't a deal. Asterisk. It was the beginning of something neither of them had planned, and neither of them could walk away from.